meeting, February 7th, 2022. I call this meeting to order, and we will do Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Clark.
You want to say long.
I did.
Sounds good.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to ask Landon Strickland from Zebulon Elementary School to come up.
We need to approve
the agenda first.
Sorry. Approval of the agenda.
I need to pull several items and add 2 motions, please, Mr. Mayor. I need to pull under consent B, the monthly financial report. I also would like to pull Ordinance 2022-33, as well as D1, the refund policy. In addition, I would like to add a motion that I'm assuming will go under new business B, 1, virtual meetings, and 2, app development.
And these will be...
I'm sorry, I need to repeat that. I want to make sure I got it. Sure, of course. Did you need me to repeat the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, absolutely. The monthly financial report pulled from consent, that's BB. The Ordinance 2022-33, as well as the Parks and Rec refund policy, which is D1. And then motion 1 is on virtual meetings. Motion 2, app development.
So those would just be topics for discussion.
Correct.
What was that? What was the last one?
App development. APP. And then I believe
Yes.
Commissioner Miles.
In addition, I'd like to pull Ordinance 2022-34, Play Zebulon implementation, and also in Section C, General Quarterly Report from Planning and Park and Recreation.
So that would be
The
C1.
C1.
C1 under 5.
Correct.
And
We also need to amend the agenda to add public comment under proclamations. Right after proclamation.
Would that need to be moved to 5, or can that just be underneath proclamations?
It would just go under
Okay.
proclamations so that anyone who needs to speak can speak before we get to everything else.
you need a second?
I'd like to approve the agenda as amended. I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. And Landon Strickland. School recognition. And okay, come over here.
I'll meet you out there. I'll just stand out a little bit further, hon, so your mom can take a picture. There, that's perfect.
Well, Landon, I just had it. Get a good look at you. Good. Landon Strickland is a very sweet and caring student. He perseveres and encourages others to do the same. He always looks at the glass as half full. Landon consistently excels in academics and demonstrates exemplary citizenship. The town of Zebulon recognizes Landon Strickland of Zebulon Elementary School as being an outstanding student. He consistently excels in academics and demonstrates exemplary citizenship. February 7th, 2022, signed by the mayor. Congratulations. Thank you. Next we have Ms. Christina White, teacher. Is she present? Well, I'll just read hers and we will get her certificate. Christina White, Mrs. White has filled the roles in the IA and classroom teacher for part of the day preschool program. She has communicated beginning of the year information with her students, families, and she has established routines and procedures for her students. And she comes to school every day with a smile on her face. Mrs. White has had new students added to her roster each week since school has started. She has made sure that the parents understood the process and the procedures at our school, as most families are new to Zebulon Elementary School. Mrs. White has done all these things even though she is compensated as an instructional assistant. Congratulations, Ms. White. The town of Zebulon Elementary School dedicates this to her for the work she's done with her students. February 7th, 2022. Next, we have the proclamation. Where is it? That's not it. And I will just read the proclamation for Black History Month. Proclamation, Black History Month 2022. Whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson noted Black scholars and sons of former slaves founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week, February 12, 1926. And for many years, the second week of February chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. And whereas in 1976, as part of the nation's bicentennial, Black History Week was expanded and became established as Black History Month and is now celebrated all over North America. And whereas African Americans have played significant roles in the history of Zebulon and North Carolina's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development while working tirelessly to maintain and promote their culture and history. And whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to remember the stories and teachings of those who helped build our nation, took a stance against prejudice to build lives of dignity and opportunity, advance the cause of civil rights, and strengthen families and communities. And whereas during Black History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past success and challenges of African Americans and look to the future to continue to improve society so that we live up to the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. Now, therefore, the Zebulon Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim February 2022 as Black History Month in the town of Zebulon and urge all citizens to celebrate our diverse heritage and culture and continue our efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, prosperous for us all. I need a motion.
I move to adopt the proclamation on Black History Month for 2022.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? And motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We amended it to have public comment after the proclamation, and we have one for public comment. And if you would come up and take the podium and tell us who you are. And
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Honey Wiggs, and I am the president of the Zebulon Rotary Club. I am here this evening to just give you an update on some things that we're doing in town and also something that will be coming in March. As you know, we did a Flags for Heroes event here in the front lawn for Veterans Day in conjunction with the Zebulon's Park and Rec. We are looking to be able to do that again over Memorial Day weekend, and so next month in March on the agenda we will be able to give you some details for you to discuss and see if we're able to do that again. Also, I want to let you know and the community know that in conjunction with the Zebulon Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club will be hosting the March Business After Hours. And so we invite all of you to come and join us for that. And we will also have a date for that. So thank you very much.
thank you. We have no more and no one else for public comment. Next on the agenda, the consent.
I move to adopt the consent as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Board vacancies.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The municipal election of November 2nd, 2021 created a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners, and at their regular meeting on January 3rd, 2022, the Zebulon Board of Commissioners adopted the steps and schedule associated with filling this vacancy. Applications from those interested in filling the Commissioner's vacancy were due by 5 p.m. on January 31st, 2022, with those applicants making presentations to the Board at tonight's regular meeting, February 7th, 2022. The Board will hear presentations from those who applied to fill the Commissioner's vacancy.
Any comments or questions? Okay. I don't have the list in order. Okay, we currently have a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners, and we adopted the process. And we have 6 applicants tonight that would like to share. And I will call each one to the podium. That's right over here. And we have 5 minutes to speak. The timer will flash. When there's 30 seconds remaining, the red will go up. There may be some questions from the Board after you speak. And if you go over, you may need to sign up again in order to complete. I think the first one is Mr. Eugene Blunt.
I have to get my mustache right. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me here. I have lived in Zebulon for over 25 years. I've been on the planning board for over 15 years. Zebulon is a wonderful community, a wonderful town, and it's a part of my heart. I enjoy being of service. Being on the planning board, I learned a lot about development. And I care for my fellow citizens, and I just want to help. I hope I haven't gone over to 5 minutes. Thank you. Any questions?
You have I do. I have a few. Recently with the Preservation of Zebulon, there was a series of votes that we did, and you were one of the people that voted to move it forward. I wanted to get a little bit better understanding of what your thoughts were on, as everybody else kind of like had voted with the National Historic Society, as well as all of us voted united. I was wondering your thoughts. You were one of the 2 to vote to push it forward. Could you please elaborate on that?
I felt that it was something our town needs. And if we waited, that's just pushing it out years and years from now to be completed. And everything else that wanted to be recognized, if we got it in, we could be able to get that done too. That was my reason for supporting it. Any other questions?
What approach do you take with communicating effectively with a diverse team with all the Zebulonians?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
1 second, please. What approach do you take with communicating effectively with a diverse team as well as with all Zebulonians?
I listen to everyone that speaks. I seldom bring up a question unless I think it's important. For me to understand someone, it's best for me to listen. And then I make my decision based on what I've heard.
And one last question. If you were to be picked to become a commissioner, what are your thoughts on filling the position of planning board that you currently hold, your position? What are your thoughts on that?
Could you ask that question again? I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
If you were to be chosen as a commissioner, what are your thoughts on filling that position that you will leave vacant on the planning board?
I'm sorry, I could not understand your question.
Okay,
Give me 1 second.
take your time.
I have hearing aids. I turned them up, so go ahead.
I'll speak a little louder as well. I apologize about that.
That's all right. That's all right. These
My
masks
statement
do
was-
not help,
If you were to be chosen as a commissioner,
right?
there will be a vacancy on the planning board. What are your thoughts?
I hope that they find someone that cares and loves that job as much as I did. And to think about the future. Because on the planning board, it's not yesterday or today that you're thinking about or making decisions about, but it's about the future. The UDO is a perfect example of that. That helped everyone develop new subdivisions, helped win zoning, bring businesses into our town.
And one last question is this. The same opportunity was given back when the election was going on. Why throw your hat in the ring now to become a commissioner?
That's a good question. I want to help. I want to serve. That's why.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Annie Moore.
Good evening, Mayor and the Board of Commission. My name is Annie Jean Moore. I had served on the Town Commission before, and some of the things that I would like to share with you that I have done when I was on the board. First, I saw where on Barber Street, West Barber Street, some lights was out, and I called and asked them would they come and put some lights so we'd be able to see because it was dark down there. Also, I talked to the policemen, asked them would they walk downtown of Zebulon so the people would be able to see that we need policemen sometime downtown, especially the people who run stores and stuff. They need to see the policemen come downtown just in case if they need them. Also, I have rode with the policemen a lot of time, and I said that to them, I said, I'm so glad that y'all walked downtown. And I was on the planning board for 9 years. That's been a long time ago. And also, I saw where we had got sidewalk in Zebulon. And I said, we need to get more sidewalk. I'd like to see a grocery store to come to Zebulon. I would like to see a shopping center come to Zebulon. And there's a lot of things that I would like to do if I was back on the town commission.
Any questions?
Any question? That's it.
Thank you. Next, we'll have David Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to talk to you. And my family and I moved to Zebulon almost 4 years ago, and we immediately fell in love with this little town. We quickly got ourselves involved in local community organizations and events. I first joined ZDAC in 2019 to help them organize events. I then was appointed to the Zebulon Planning Board in 2020, and at the end of 2021, I was elected by the Planning Board to be the chairperson. My wife, Michelle, and 2 children have supported me in all these endeavors. with the understanding that I am doing what I can to give them a great place to live. Michelle recently joined the Zebulon Women's Club, so she can do her part for our town as well. We have always had a sense of service to our community. I have volunteered many hours in my life in service to help others. It has given me great pride to be able to have a positive impact on so many lives and families. In my day-to-day, I work for an engineering firm helping to design public service facilities like schools, labs, hospitals, courthouses, military facilities, and such. It brings me great joy knowing that I am making lives better. Zebulon is facing a lot of challenges in this ever fast-growing community, such as traffic and economic development. And I would like to be on the board to help make help have a positive impact on that growth. While we're growing, we also need to focus on the community that is already here and has been here through Zebulon's history. There are a lot of services that need to be improved for some in this town, such as transportation and walkability, and I would be honored to join you in facing these challenges head on. I've also been working on economic development events for Zebulon. Being a private citizen has created some challenges to these efforts. I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to operate and advance these efforts in a more official way. In short, I feel that I could be an asset to this board and to the town of Zebulon. I look forward to the chance to be of service to our Zebulon families and community. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. Do you have any thoughts or ideas about how the Mudcats Stadium can be utilized, since we are given a number of days every year through our contract with Wake County that the town can utilize?
So, as I was saying, I've been working on economic development events. One of those is utilizing that stadium. I have met with many parties of interest to bring something positive to Zebulon, and it's been a slow ball rolling to get these things moving forward, dealing with the different parties that I'm trying to have involved. And like I said, I would like to be more official to say, hey, I'm a Board of Commissioners member, let's get this going now, you know, so.
I have a question. If you're chosen to be part of the team at the end of your term in 21 months, how will you judge if you have had an effective and successful time frame?
By listening to the community. I mean, we're successful by listening to the citizens, right? I mean, if they're happy, then we're doing something right. And if they're not, then we need to focus on what we need to improve to make their lives better.
And I'll pose the same question to you that I posed to the gentleman earlier. Can you briefly explain your reason for voting as you did on the PZ ruling?
Yeah, so there was a lot of public input throughout the whole process of approving Preservation Zebulon's, or the town's rather, historical district. And having talked to some of the people that lived in what would be the affected area, they seem to have wanted it. So if that is, you know, what our citizens are wanting, then if we have the ability to make that possible, why not make that possible? The negatives in that are that there were areas that were not included, and there were areas that were included that probably shouldn't have been. But the overall would have been a positive impact for the town of Zebulon, in my opinion.
Also, on your application, there was something about the U.S. House of Representatives. Can you explain that a little bit for me?
So, prior to moving here, prior to getting the job at the engineering firm, I was actually working on a campaign to join the U.S. House of Representatives in an Ohio district. The opportunity here was a lot better, and I'm so much more grateful for taking the opportunity here because we've never been happier. But it would have faced a lot of challenges against the incumbent that was in that district, so it would have ended up being more of a political statement to run against her. But I had gone through the steps and put through the applications and had everything on board, and just the opportunity was here was that much greater, so.
Thank you.
And guaranteed.
One more question. When it comes to group dynamics, what do you believe hinders teamwork the most, and how would you overcome that?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
When it comes to group dynamics, what do you believe hinders teamwork the most? How do you overcome that?
What hinders teamwork is miscommunication, in my opinion. So I work in a very small office. There's 15 total people, and we do several $100 million worth of business every year. So we have to communicate really well as a team in order to get all of these projects accomplished. And as soon as that communication breaks down, things fall through the cracks. And so I think if you can't communicate together, then things are going to start falling through the cracks.
One last question. What book are you currently reading?
So my mother, for my birthday, got me the Dad's Guide to Bible Study, and she also got me the Dad's Bible to go with it. So that's currently what I'm reading.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Next, we will have Casey Germano.
Glasses on so I can see you guys. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I'm Casey Germano, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time and working so diligently to fill this vacancy. I'd like to give a quick overview of myself and what I believe I have to offer in this position. First, I'd like to say I appreciated all of your questions, and I really truly hope that I answered all of your concerns. As a commercial interior designer, I have worked firsthand in experiences in developing master plans, working through financial implications, and determining timelines for that development. Part of the general master plan process is delineating all necessary infrastructure improvements, whether that be updating existing systems, abandoning, or placing new ones. As all of you are aware, we have numerous modifications that need to be done in order to encourage continual smart growth. As a designer, having worked through these types of problems before, I feel I bring a wealth of knowledge to help in the process. I also come to you as a member of the newcomers of Zebulon. Being a part of one of the neighborhoods on the north side of the highway, there is a voice that needs to be heard and continually advocated for. Our town has done a wonderful job in developing our latest UDO, Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Parks and Recreations Master Plan, and others to help grow our area. A large part of the conversations thus far have been focused in downtown development. I would like to be a voice for the Comprehensive Land Use Plan and advocating for further discussions to create more areas of economic growth. Excuse me. In recent years, I have worked at NC State University. My job was to determine how development happens around campus. As a state institution, we were also tasked with working with the federal government to provide funding, and how do we actually use that funding. Like Zebulon, we have and need to continue to develop our plan of action for the years ahead to accomplish a developed cohesive town. Over the past 3 years, I have worked to get to know many of the business and building owners, as I am one myself. I have been involved with many of the currently approved master plans, along with being the current chair of the ZDAC Events Committee. Working with many other members of town, I have already built the relationships, and I feel if selected, I would be able to quickly and efficiently start making informed decisions. All of these skills, I believe, translate to being an informed and knowledgeable representative for our town. Thank you.
Questions?
Questions?
Having moved into one of the newer developments, please explain how you feel your voice is different and would be a benefit to the board.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So in the 3.5 years that my husband and I have been in town, we have been to many town organized events, and a great deal of the conversations that we have had have really and wholeheartedly revolved around our downtown area. And because of that, I think we are landlocked in downtown. With the exponential growth that has come, and in talking with other neighbors and surrounding neighborhoods, as a community, we are lacking in a lot of, retail, grocery, mercantile. And so, I know you guys have heard it, but I want to be that voice of the people that are moving out here because they do see that there is future growth, but also wanting to reinvest in downtown, and also reinvest in our town so we can make economic choices here instead of taking it out of town. I hope that answers that, Jamie.
Thank you.
One quick question right here. What qualities and characteristics do you have that will instill confidence in all Zebulonians that your decisions and actions on the board are inclusive for all Zebulonians?
Yes, thank you so much, Quentin. So really it comes down to, I am a people person. I'm not necessarily the person that likes standing here and doing this, but I do like talking to each and every person that I come into contact with. And going back to what was said earlier, really it's about listening as well. And so I want to make sure that I have an open door policy. Working at NC State, it really gave me the opportunity to take a lot of classes in really learning where my shortfalls were. I grew up in a very small and not at all diverse town, and so the older I've gotten, the more I've realized what I need to continue to educate myself on. And I think through that continual education, it opens up a lot more doors of communications with everyone.
What do you view as the town's role in revitalizing downtown? As you stated earlier, your husband, you guys own a building downtown. But for those people that don't own those buildings downtown, how will you kind of make sure when your decision fact being made, you'll kind of consider everybody, not just the business owners? What can you do with that?
So a lot of it is about, kind of what you went through during the election. It's communication, and it's really about how do we engage our community. Being a business owner and being a building owner in downtown, one of the quickest things that I learned is that when I meet people out in my neighborhood and I tell them I have the white and green building, which is very distinct, it's bright green and white. I don't want to give percentages, but it's something like 95% of the people have no idea. And so a lot of it is communicating with our newcomers and getting them to downtown, because our downtown, the people that live in downtown, obviously they see the growth and they're excited about it, but we've got to engage our other neighborhoods and bring them to our downtown, get them excited about our area, bring more economic development to our downtown, which will then allow us to grow our other areas.
One last question. What positive impact would you make on the board's culture?
So really, it's about being just the new voice. Our current members, everyone has been in this town for a very long time, and has sat on many different boards, has been, Shannon's been a business owner here for, I'm not exactly sure how long, but it's been a very long time. You've been here a while. I've talked to each one of you. You guys have all been here a long time, and I think that I bring a new, fresh perspective. I come from a town that started out this size and is now huge in Florida. They didn't grow right. I went away to college, I came back, and things are just scattered everywhere. It's not cohesive. And so as a designer, I'd like to really bring that perspective to our board so that we're not having to have those conversations outside. We can have those conversations internally and best decide how we're going to move that forward. And so again, it's just a new perspective.
I'm good.
I have one. Your husband is on the planning board,
Yes, he is.
and a lot of the decisions that he would make would directly affect the vote of the board. How would you go about handling that?
So I can answer that very easily. My husband has an architectural and interior design firm. And when he started that firm, we decided not to work together because we do have different opinions. Both of us are very strong-minded and strong-willed. We have our designated rooms in our home so that he can have his time and I can have my time. We agree on a lot of things. And we're both designers. We both understand how to grow, how to develop land, but we do vary. I mean, there are things that have been approved that I don't necessarily agree of how he voted. But neither one of us is afraid to voice that opinion. Neither one of us has ever been pushed down by the other. And so I really don't think it would affect the relationship between the board and the planning board. Does that answer that?
Just for the record, I have asked our town attorney to look into this matter, and he has some comments that I would like to have on public record.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know it was going to get legal. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, you asked me to look into the issues related to potential conflict of interest between candidate Germano and planning board member Germano. There is no legal restriction, either in case law or in statutory law, that would prevent both from serving. Ms. Germano as an appointee for the vacancy, and Mr. Germano in his role in the planning board. However, the conflict of interest rules for the town of Zebulon address the issue of even the appearance of a conflict of interest. So that might present some issues for Ms. Germano if she were appointed to the vacancy in terms of describing or disclosing how her position would be independent, or there would not be an appearance of conflict of interest with the decisions that had been made by the planning board. So that's a practical issue, but not a legal issue. There is no legal obstacle to having Ms. Germano appointed to that vacancy, if that's the pleasure of the board.
Well, and I can say, so Michael has his architectural and interiors firm. I actually have left NC State since applying, and I went back to an architectural and engineering firm that I worked for out of Florida, and I work 100% remote. I'm in one of the offices in our downtown co-working space, and both of us work on NDA contracts. I work on a lot of government contracts that I cannot share. I work on a lot of entertainment contracts that I cannot share. I work on a lot of aviation and aerospace and federal projects that Michael and I cannot have communications with. And so really it's a lot of generic, I'm working on a airplane hangar. So we're accustomed to that already. So if there are things that obviously need to be kept on one side and kept on the other, we're used to doing that at this point.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Next, we will have Jessica Harrison.
Good evening. Excuse me. Thank you all for having me tonight. So, I am here and I would like to be on the Board of Commissioners because I am a native of Zebulon. I was born, bred, and raised here in Zebulon, North Carolina, and I've pretty much been here my entire life. As serving on the town commissioner, it would be an opportunity for me to give back to the community that has invested and given a lot to me. My first job was at the Dairy Bar in Zebulon. My second job was at Rose's in Zebulon. And my third job until I went to college was at Precious Children's Depot until they closed down. So I have literally been in Zebulon for a long time. And when I say that Zebulon has invested in me in so many different ways, my grandfather provided for his family by working until he retired at Whitley Galleries, which is now closing down. But so my family is rooted in the heart of Zebulon, North Carolina. And I believe in the mission. I believe in the values. I have rode past the sign that says Town of Friendly People for 30-ish years. And to say that I would be honored would be an understatement. I have lived here. I attended Zebulon Middle School. As I told you, my first job was here, and I really believe in where Zebulon is going. The development that I have seen within the town over the last, number of years has been amazing. Sometimes I come and I'm like, wow, we have that now? We're getting a coffee shop in Zebulon? That is something else. And to be a part of the community that has invested so much in me would be an honor and a joy. My husband and I recently bought our first home in Zebulon. And so while a lot of people say, Jessica, why are you still in Zebulon? I went to college and I received my bachelor's degree and I left, and then I received my master's degree. And I've worked in education pretty much my entire professional adult life. And so I get a lot of times people say, why are you still in Zebulon? Because I love Zebulon. Because Zebulon has been where my family started, and now it's where I'm raising my kids. And to be able to be a part of the town and the community where my husband and I have chosen to raise our family, to be able to be a part of the change, the diversity, the dynamics of the town that has given so much to me would be an honor. And in doing so, I feel like I can bring a unique voice to the board because I'm able to touch, I believe that I'm able to touch a different dynamics of citizens because of where I grew up in Zebulon. I believe that I can bring forth a voice that hadn't always been heard here in town, and not because they hadn't been reached out to, but because they just hadn't taken the opportunity. And I believe that I can bring a different level and a different voice from different people who hadn't always realized that it's important to have a voice in the town and in the place where you live and where you grow.
Any questions?
You're married. Do you have children?
I do have children.
Okay, and do they participate? Are they in the Zebulon school system and in the Zebulon rec department? Because I saw reference to Carver Elementary.
Yes, so before we moved to Zebulon, we lived in Wendell. And so my kids started off at Carver, and as an educator, I prefer the year-round track. And so my kids have continued at Carver Elementary in their school setting. Because as an educator, I believe in broken up school year in the year-round track. And Carver is our only school of choice in the area.
Do they participate in the rec department over there too?
Yes,
okay.
They still participate in the rec department in Wendell as well.
I guess I'm going to piggyback off that question. How do you see improving our Parks and Rec programs so that you would be, inclined to or encouraged to move your children from the Parks and Rec Department in Wendell to the Parks and Rec Department in Zebulon?
Well, the Parks and Rec Department in Zebulon, I don't think is a bad department. We just haven't made the transition over because we're familiar with the Wendell Parks and Recreation. My husband coaches for them. So it's not a lack of or an opportunity for improvement. We just hadn't made the transition. So I don't want to speak ill on the department because I do think that they're a good department. We just hadn't made the transition as of yet, actually. Actually, we did start with the Zebulon Cougars football team. Well, no, the recreational football team, but my son decided that he was not a football player, so we stopped. He didn't like the heat or being hit.
I have a question. How much time do you believe per week needs to be dedicated to commissioner's duties to make an effective commissioner?
I don't know that I could measure the time frame that could be given to it. I believe that you would need to commit as much time as needed to get the job done. So I can't give a measurement, but I would say at least or at minimum, if I had to give an answer, 20 hours a week outside of regular meetings or the planning boards and different things like that.
If you're chosen to be part of our team, at the end of your term in 21 months, how will you judge if your time has been effective and successful?
By the measurement of time I've put into what I've been doing here on the board or as the appointed person. If I can go 21 months and I'm not tired, if I can go 21 months and I haven't had sleepless nights, if I can go 21 months and say that, that was a piece of cake, then I know that I haven't put the work in as it needs to be put in for a community like Zebulon.
I'll ask one question again, as I asked earlier. What positive impact would you make on the board's culture?
I believe I am a glass half full person. I am a positive person by nature. I haven't always been a positive person by nature. It is something that has been learned, something that I've had to work very hard to attain and maintain. I believe in going the extra mile and working with people in a way that I see the person or the people or the group instead of what's on black and white. And so in making positive change, I believe it takes a listening ear, an open heart, and the willingness to grow. And I wanted you asked a question earlier, Commissioner Miles, to the gentleman that was first, and I wanted to answer that question. I wanted to elaborate, if I can. I don't know that I
Please.
can. Go ahead.
Please.
Okay.
What question?
It was the question about when it was time to run, why didn't I throw my hat in the ringer when it was time to campaign and run?
So is that going to be your
Yes,
question?
Was that going to be your question?
That's
okay.
fine.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to answer that because I wanted to have a moment of transparency, if I may, without sounding incompetent. The reason that I had never aspired or thought about doing it is because I didn't really know that it was something to aspire to do. You know, I've been in Zebulon my entire life. I've watched Mayor York. I've watched you all. I've watched Miss Annie Jones on several different occasions, but I just didn't know that it was something to aspire to do until I saw this man standing at my corner of my neighborhood with his dog. And I was like, who is this guy and why is he standing here with his dog? And then I was standing on my mom's porch and this same man came by on our block and was talking to the people in my neighborhood about voting and about getting out and about doing the work of Zebulon. And it dawned on me that you can do this. It was never an aspiration because I never knew that it was something that I should do or I should even be interested in doing. And so now that I have that opportunity, whether now or later, I want to throw my hat in the ringer.
Who was that man with the dog?
That was you, Commissioner Miles.
Any more comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Stephanie Taranto.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here this evening. My name's Stephanie Taranto, and my husband, Phil Brown, and I, we live on West Gannon Avenue with our 5 rescue kitties and dogs. If you spend any time near that area, you may have heard of this calico kitty that seems to march down the street with our dog and my husband, Phil, who is the attraction of the neighborhood on their way to Whitley Park. In fact, I was in Nightdale recently and overheard somebody saying, "Have you ever seen this calico kitty in Zebulon walking the dog?" So if you've heard of that, that's our family. We moved here in 2013. Not to tell a ton of stories, but we moved here in 2013, and I bought our home sight unseen while I was in a business trip in Europe. That's how much I believed in what the quality of life for my family, the quality of life we could have here, the passion I had for this town, even at that point. Now, I did have to buy my husband a very large bottle of wine when he landed in his airplane ride to meet me, to say, hey, I just bought a home in Zebulon, and his family's from here. He grew up here, so it wasn't that bad of a news break for him. But we have enjoyed our life here, as I said, since 2013. And when I think about the town, of any city town, I really kind of categorize the health of that town in 3 ways. The sense of place, which I think of is a citizen's level of commitment and pride in their town, the health of the commerce, and the safety. Now, when we first moved here, I can definitely say that I had trouble transitioning in that, we didn't have a vibrant downtown. We didn't have a place to really invite our friends and our family. I mean, I had to hire car services, say, please come visit us. They didn't want to make the trek from Raleigh. So we had a lot of transition we had to go through when we moved here. And certainly fast forwarding 2022, I know that the results and outcome of this board and the previous board have definitely made an impact on the quality of life that we have. And when I think about Zebulon, we really, are still somewhat of a bedroom community in that we sleep here, but a lot of our citizens have to leave to work and socialize. And I really believe that we can make a difference through economic development and strengthening our commerce, our strategic partnerships within the greater Wake County, that we can make a difference for the people who want to live, work, and socialize within their own communities. So they're spending their money and their time here and not having to go outside of that. As far as commerce goes, I know that, we all know corporate America and the way in which the workforce is being developed, recruited, retained is changing. We're moving more towards solo entrepreneurs, freelancers. So developing an infrastructure that supports those types of workforces and those qualities of life are going to be important and will be a key differentiator for Zebulon. I'm excited about an opportunity to invest my knowledge base in that. We currently spend less than 0.5% of our budget on economic development. I think we need to bolster that in order to achieve our 2030 strategic vision. So my potential and skill set, I think, really marries well with that empty board seat right there. I'd like to fill that. And Happy to take any questions about, my transferable skills and my experience, whatever questions you have.
Questions?
How would you address our social media strategic planning and management going forward from this point into, say, the next 10 or 15 years to develop the type of community that our strategic plan is really trying to address?
Yeah, great question. So I think communications is definitely core to any type of vision that you have. I think this is an area that we definitely need to improve. I will say, as a citizen, I've been extremely pleased and entertained, excited by what our new police chief has done with the social media outreach. I think you give a presence of probably more resources than we may have when you actually communicate and communicate with your citizens. And it's the first time I've ever felt comfortable communicating with my police department through social media. So that's one example of being able to have more engagement, awareness. I am a tech person, so, I also believe that, we spend most of our time on our devices, so augmenting our online presence with an app would be really important to our communication plan. I think the Parks and Recreation in late 2021 really started improving their communications with the citizens. I've been here since 2013. I knew nothing really about our park system in detail. Like, I look forward to the park, I think it's on Fridays, we get these, little write-ups that helps me communicate within Zebulon as well as outside of Zebulon to say, hey, we've got these great assets. So I think strategic communications is a part of our growth strategy and in attracting the economic development that we need and the residents that we want to live here.
You say that you've been in business operation leadership for 22 years. How will that transfer onto the board?
So business operations really is a function of, for me, I've been working in healthcare clinical research for 22 years. That's a highly regulated industry, much like government. So compliance is critical. The rules of order are critical. Business operations, working in publicly traded companies, so, the scrutiny of that, of budget management, budget compliance, communications around those things. I think my understanding of financial statements, legal documentation, I'm responsible in my company for drafting and negotiating operational, legal, financial terms for millions of dollars. I mean, a $15,000 contract to a $300 million contract. So the range is large, and I have to think with risk mitigation. I'm always thinking risk mitigation, which definitely annoys my husband. But I am thinking forward, but also practical, and being able to ground myself in those skill sets, I think it would be a benefit to the board.
Thank you.
This is not necessarily about impressing and convincing us up here. It's about representing the citizens of Zebulon. What is at least one reason why you think the citizens would have confidence in you as a commissioner?
As far as representing citizens, as I mentioned earlier, I think that I do have a unique understanding of what it's like to move from a corporate world into small business ownership, freelance. I think people are searching for different ways to experience life fully, and I think that understanding that lifestyle is really important to setting yourself up to be attractive to a diverse set of people. Diversity being multifaceted, multidimensional. It's, you know, how you live, work, and play. I mean, all of that diversity. One particular segment I know that I could represent very well are those independent freelancers, small business owners, because I am one.
What approach do you take to communicate effectively with a diverse team and with all Zebulonians?
Well, I think being able to quickly connect with somebody is really important. Being approachable, leading with recognizing another person's value, learning from them, being able to be helpful to other people. I think that, you know, there's a dynamic that you can create one-on-one and with groups of people that we're in this together, and how can I help you and how can you help me? There's an exchange of value that's constantly occurring, and I think that's what makes, I think that's what really gives life to diversity. We're learning from each other.
In your statements earlier, you said that you bought your house sight unseen.
I did.
What made you choose to do that?
Well, so the day before I left for my business trip, we were visiting my husband's family who lives here in Zebulon. We drove by the house, and I said, whoa, that's a really cool house. And then the next day I got on a plane to Europe. And I laugh and joke and say, that's what my husband gets for leaving me one day alone in Europe. I got a little bored. But no, honestly, with the, there's such an amazing experience to live in a historic home. The character of it, I mean, there is absolutely, I've been in real estate. I've seen lots of opportunities to buy different homes, and there is nothing to me that compares to living in a historic home with that character. And the community, I just take action when I have the instinct to do so, and I think I really do that in a lot of areas of my life. It's never served me wrong, actually. It's instinct, really.
Okay, you mentioned that you live on one of the historic homes in Gannon. What are your thoughts on the historic homes on Barbie Street? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's probably opportunity for, I think every area really has an opportunity from the historic section, using that in air quotes, for revitalization. So while my home probably gets a lot of attention because it's on the main thoroughfare, we definitely, need to look at how to apply resources and attention to all the areas of the historic district.
Currently, the town is working on branding, and I was asked this question. I'd like to pose it to you. Mm-hmm. If you could describe Zebulon in one word, what would it be?
Opportunity. I'm somebody who likes the gap, so I like to fill in the gap. We have opportunity here, whether that's how you want to live your life or how you want to create a business and have a voice in a smaller community. It's just opportunity to me.
When it comes to groups dynamics, what do you believe hinders teamwork the most, and how would you overcome it?
Well, I am an advocate for communication for sure. I think there's an accountability that needs to occur with every group you're going to have people, we're human, we're all gonna have our own agendas, right? We all have our things that we want to make happen, and we want the others in our group to hear us, to see us. We need to reciprocate that. When we don't reciprocate the fact that we want to be seen and heard, that means we lose respect for each other when we're not doing that. So I think communication and being able to respect other people's opinions and their voice is critical in creating a healthy group dynamic and seeing how the multiple agendas, how do they fit in? Because there's usually one thread or two threads that kind of connect everything, and you have to persevere to find that. And you can't do that unless you're listening with intention.
You stated in that statement there, we all have our own agendas. What would be your agenda to fill that seat, as you stated earlier?
So I think I'm passionate about economic development because I'm passionate about business. I feel like business is connected to opportunity. I'm passionate about making a difference in generational poverty issues that, community, we have that. I think that, transformation for a person individually, a family, and as a town is really where my pathway would be. And, I don't see any of us having an issue with that type of an agenda. Now, my way of going about it and your way of going about it might be different, but I'm going to listen and see what I can learn from you, and I would like the same in return. And what we would create is something better than we could do on our own. So if I summed it up, economic development is my passion, and utilizing that to make a difference and transform people's lives and their families.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to personally thank each one of the applicants for their willingness to serve. Not every day you get folks that is interested in what goes on in their community and how they can help. As you know, that Friday, February the 25th, 2022, we will have a meeting, special call meeting at 6 p.m. To decide, the board will decide at that time which applicant to be approved. Thank you for your interest.
Indeed, thank you all.
I second it. Thank you, guys.
New business, Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Thanks for the opportunity to bring street closure for a private-led public event to you this evening. I'm just going to go through a little bit of background because this is a project that this board has been working on for a couple of years now. I think COVID slowed us down a little bit, and we're really looking forward to this opportunity to engage in a public-private partnership and bring this forward to you to consider. So if you recall, in 2020, right before COVID hit, we did a retreat at Rocky Mount Mills, and we provided a couple of different presentations, one being economic development, and we heard from Ben Braddock, who he has that entire block that we visited. It was snowing, so we didn't get to visit all of it. But that's a private group of businesses that seek to do public events in private-owned areas, like public streets or public parking lots. And one of the things that he told us that we talked about further the next day was that some of their biggest challenges was actually working with the municipality and trying to, make everything happen, and, just kind of streamlining a process was important. And so the next day, we talked about the difference in town organized public events and private public events. So the example we talked about for town-run events is you do have your smaller community-based events, like we do Superhero Day. We've done Veterans Day, which we're thankful to the Rotary Club that we've been able to partner with and reshape that. But we've done the downtown tree lighting. We've done our Spring Festival, which has had various iterations over the years, from Arts in the Park to Market on the Lawn, or I guess it was, I think it was Market on the Lawn back in the day, to May Days. And so we talked about that and the difference in how the town can be involved. So I'm going to hit briefly, because this isn't necessarily about town events, but it's just to give you a representation of how important it is that the private sector has the opportunity to create these events. When we put on the big festivals that cost the town a significant amount of money and a significant amount of resources. So we would anticipate the Spring Festival could cost about $15,000 to do a full-scale event. That doesn't count necessarily the staff hours going into planning that event. The downtown tree lighting is anywhere from that $15,000 to $17,000, depending on the level of music that you bring in or the amusements that we bring in for an event like that. And so, again, you have staff resources. For both of these events, that requires police, fire, public works, parks and rec, admin, staff even pitch in and help. So there's a lot of time and effort put into those events. So it's really important that we create these partnerships with the private industry and community members. You have been engaging over the last year, really it's been a little bit longer, but really in the last year, with the Main Street program. Teresa is here tonight, and there have been a variety of presentations and workshops that have been open to the community and the board and staff. And one of the 4 pillars of the Main Street program is promotions. And if you dive into what promotions is, it's a variety of things, but events falls into that. So as we continue to move forward with the DAC program and trying to move into the Main Street program, this is a component that's continuing your efforts. So there's a great video. I don't think it's going to show in here tonight, but unfortunately, but I would love, we can send it and share it, of kind of what the impact of your private citizens can have on an area that you're trying to revitalize. So resulting from the 2020 retreat, we did talk about creating an opportunity to put a placeholder to be able to support. There were going to be some financial implications to these private industries, and there was going to be an impact on town staff. So if you're going to close down the street, you can't really close down the street without the town getting involved. You're going to have police, and you're going to have public works come in and help. So we talked about, while we prepared our budgets and when we adopted the 2021 budget, there were several things that we did. We were working towards kind of pulling a group together that represented all town departments that could partner together and work with each other and these private groups that wanted to plan events, so that they could submit some paper, like an application that gives us a little bit of an idea of what they want to do, but then we can review that, we can meet with them and kind of help shape it, give them some feedback on what we know works, time frames, things like that. But we also included some opportunities for funding. So that's what the 2021 budget did for us, but COVID hit. So we included it's a smaller portion of money, but there are current funds of about $1,400 in the existing budget where we could utilize to support a private event. The event review work group, so as I mentioned, we have been working on a process that will streamline it, and it's easy. It's harder to fine-tune a process until you have somebody go through it completely. And so this is really the first opportunity where we've really had to be able to fully go through a process. So we're excited to go through that and have the learning experiences. Every department did put their eyes on this event, and we also developed an agreement because one did not formally exist. So we have developed an agreement that our legal team as well as our insurance underwriters have reviewed and approved. So the specific event in question is a St. Patrick's Day event. The Wake and District Pipe and Drums is a 501c3. They are connected with the bagpipe business that's looking to come to downtown eventually, and they have been very active in our downtown, specifically with Old Raleigh Distillery. They've participated in several of our events. They are interested on Saturday, March 19th, 2022. They'd like to do a bagpipe march into the event, have live music, food trucks, and activities. We're looking at a street closure from noon to 6 p.m., and that includes the setup and breakdown time. The ideal location is West Horton Street, and possible use of the municipal lot for staging as they get ready. Town resources, we're expecting approximately 2 public works staff to set the detour for the street and the street closure and remove it. And we're expecting you don't quite know what you're gonna get with an event once you tag St. Patrick's Day on it, with it being our first time as well. We are looking, after talking with the police department, at having 3 police officers. They might not all be there the entire time, like during setup and breakdown, but we do anticipate needing that to get started. As a policy review, this event does meet all 3 focus areas of your strategic plan, from a vibrant downtown, growing smart, as well as small town life. And from your Parks and Rec master plan, there were 2 areas that stood out for me that this would be important, that were drawn out of the master plan, is that it was going to be important for us to collaborate with downtown partners to offer events, as well as to identify opportunities to support and encourage private-led public events. In addition to developing I guess a more robust special event policy with the board, there are additional ordinances that we are going to have to work through with the board, and that's going to include a more specific street closure ordinance, as well as consideration of a social district. So laws in North Carolina have recently changed with the possibility of how alcohol can move around your downtown. So that's going to be something that a lot of downtowns around us are considering social districts. So that's some information that you might see in the future.
Would that be a temporary social district for the event?
So the event, the St. Patrick's Day event, they themselves are not going to include alcohol.
Okay.
So I would imagine that the nearby businesses would have their designated areas and beer gardens, but the event itself will not sell alcohol or have it in the event.
So we wouldn't necessarily need a social district for this event?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we provided 3 options to you to consider. So one option is to close the street, waive all staff-related fees. The second option is to waive fees for road closures, but require payment of off-duty officers. And the third option is to waive no fees, but still close the street.
Before we take a look at that, I had a couple questions for you, Sheila, as well. Is there a contingency plan for like weather or anything like that? Do you guys have that? And what is that?
Typically, events like this are going to be rain or shine. It's not our event to plan the contingency plan, but I would imagine that more than likely they would work with some of the downtown businesses that they've had a relationship with in the past.
Okay. And also, just as the Rotary Club presented to us, Is there a reason why you're presenting to us and not a representative for those guys? Is there a reason for that? I don't know.
Yeah, so we have a very short turnaround time, and Mr. Brady is actually out of town.
Okay.
He's in another state, so he would not be able to be here, but we couldn't wait until March to bring this to you. It'd be too late.
Okay. Then also, you mentioned like the vendors and things like that. Is there some way you can kind of make sure like they're Zebulon-based, the food trucks and things of that nature, to kind of involve the citizens more that way to make sure, do we have say in that or not really?
I mean, if they're planning the event, I don't know that the town's gonna get too much in the details of who is gonna be on site. I know that he is very open and is very interested in working with the other businesses, and so we can make that recommendation. I also believe that because it's a St. Patrick's Day event, that there's probably gonna be some vendors that would be attractive to people that are gonna come to a St. Patrick's Day event as well. So I would imagine there'll be a mix of opportunities there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I applaud you for developing this process because we do need that process. So if anybody wants to do this, there's kind of a checklist. And I agree with you also that you have to go through this process a couple times to iron out the wrinkles. One wrinkle that pops up in my mind, I'm going to see if you guys have discussed it. What if a business owner, well, I see from the policy, whoever's doing this event is responsible for contacting the business owners impacted. What happens if they push back and don't want the street closed?
Well, that's why you have the resolution, because the town can close the road. In this particular situation, we tried to work very hard. Like when the application first came to us, they wanted a time that was in the morning. And with our understanding of how the businesses operate on Horton Street in that specific area, we worked with them to find a time that would not impact the businesses as much. And so we try to be very aware of that because we know that that can be a problem in some downtowns where, you know, everybody wants to have these big events, but then it impacts the businesses that are on that street sometimes and not as positively as you would like it to. And so you have to, it's that fine line that you have to be able to walk that, yes, we do need these things for our downtown to truly thrive. And so there are going to be times where we want to close it. At the same time, we want to be respectful of those other businesses and try to pick times that are going to impact them the least, but still be beneficial.
Yeah, very good. And I'm also happy to see that this event's tied to a holiday, which to me means the first annual event, and this may be something we can do year after year.
I believe you're right. I think that there's a lot of potential. Teresa has been in my office a number of times going, we got to figure out how to make this work because this can grow to be something huge. The only place around here that has a St. Patrick's Day event is Raleigh. And so we have been very conscious and working with Joe because they participate in that parade is that, you know, we're not going to plan it on the same day, and they're taking the lead on it because they have a really good idea of how these types of events can grow and expand and really become something spectacular for a community.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and for the board, I'm happy if we funded this and call it seed money to get it started the first year, and hopefully it could pay for itself next year.
I absolutely agree. I think until we get all of the little details and particulars ironed out and we have more of an idea of how we can get things to run smoothly, what kind of staff hours we're actually going to truly need with some of these types of events, relieving some of the burden from this 501c3 that's coming to us and wanting to make an investment in our community through creating an event, waiving those fees is appropriate.
Does the board have any more questions? I just have one more. You may have answered. I might have missed it, Sheila. With Larry brought up like the 501c, they have to go and ask for the closure to the business owners. Is that something the town would be beneficial for the town staff to do instead of that to represent the person? Would it be easier for the town staff to do it?
So what we've talked about doing is providing a list of addresses and businesses to the individual, I mean, I think that there needs to be an understanding that, yes, we are a part of this,
Right.
but also the event organizer needs to be able to facilitate some concerns that might be shared with them or access issues, because there may be things that we can't answer. And so I think that, I mean, we could work with them to draft a letter where maybe there is contact for the town in addition to the event organizer, but I think the event organizer is gonna have more information.
Okay, because I know it's like 21 years old, 21 years of age and older. I just try to visualize a 21-year-old going to some of these business owners like, no, I'm not shutting my business down for you in the future, that's all. Just trying to get an understanding of that.
I'd like to make a move to adopt Resolution 2022-11 with the consideration and approval of option C, which is to waive the fees. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That would be option A, waive all staff-related fees.
We have a motion.
Second.
Discussion. No discussion. All in favor? Motion passed. Does she need to read that whole motion again? You got it. Option A was.
Correct, that's what I said, option A. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you're not done with me yet tonight. So in addition to the events information, we are bringing before you a financial aid policy. To provide a little bit of background, you have adopted your Parks and Rec Master Plan, and part of adopting that has highlighted for us as a department a lot of different policies and procedural things that we really want to make very clear and a little bit more firm so that we have consistency and transparency as we operate. One of the things this financial aid policy will do for us is provide that very clear line of how such a program would operate, because this is going to be new for us. We have wanted to do a financial scholarship program for children for a while now. Our Parks and Rec Advisory Board expressed a lot of interest in it. When they adopted their goals for last year, one of the things that they talked about wanting to do was developing a fund, them going out and fundraising and being that primary body. So they actually did that this year, and they were able to acquire a $1,000 donation. In order for us to really promote that and process the financial aid scholarships, we wanted to bring this policy to get the blessing of the board. Our Parks and Rec Advisory Board has seen this policy, and they've provided feedback to us as well. And I'm available to answer any questions that you have.
Is the scholarship policy going to be mainly donation driven as far as the funds that are available from year to year?
Yes.
And it's my understanding from this that you've got to be a participant in some kind of public assistance.
Yes, so that's pretty standard for a youth recreation scholarship program. The reason for that is, one, we're not experts on when it comes to financial challenges and how that impacts the family and family size and all of that, but there are well-established and well-vetted government programs that are already in place that already vet these things. And so we feel it's best to kind of follow that practice because it has been proven to work successfully for many other Parks and Rec departments. But it also doesn't put town staff in a position to review very personal situations for families that we're not really trained in how to evaluate that.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't see it specifically addressed, but I am assuming this is for citizens and non-citizens, both, correct?
No. So
It's citizens only.
It's written to be for, so eligibility, it says youth up to ages 18 of age and or through high school are eligible for financial aid. The recipient must be a town of Zebulon resident.
Okay.
There is a section that says special consideration may be granted for extenuating circumstances. That portion was added because there was some concern from the advisory board about, you just never know. And so what we expressed to them as a staff, we're not comfortable going outside that line, or I guess crossing that line of this is what it is, because that is very personal. And so the discussion we had was, until you develop a really big fund where you have that leeway, then you really should focus on your town residents that meet the criteria. Because right now, $1,000 sounds great, but it's not gonna last long. And so there's gonna have to be a year-round consideration of going after funding until you can build up a nice nest egg where maybe residency isn't a problem and there's not a resident in Zebulon that has trouble participating in a Parks and Rec program because of a financial concern.
Any more questions, comments? We need a motion.
I move that we adopt the youth program financial aid policy as presented in our packet of February 7th, 2022.
Second.
We hear a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Next was, okay, the next one was the amended monthly financial.
I didn't hear what you said, Mayor, but you're looking at me.
Excuse me. Monthly financial.
Oh, okay, yes. Thank you, Mr. Fitz, for coming to the podium. I'm not sure if you received my email in time for you to pull Department 410's expenditures for year to date.
Did not, but I can.
Can you walk us through them a little bit, because it does seem like it's a little bit high for where we are.
Sure.
I don't need nickels and dimes. I'm just wondering where the meat and potatoes is in this line item.
So you're referring to the expenditure statement for 410 where it
Yeah.
says basically about 56% spent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes, please.
Well, as usual, the majority of that is professional services, legal fees, and ordinance codification. There's some big chunk stuff in there that kind of becomes the majority of that department's budget, really. Salaries and everything else is probably up 20% of the budget, and everything else. Travel and training, things like that. Elections falls in there. But the majority is probably the professional services.
So is this all of the legal fees, or this is just the board usage?
That would be majority of, well, it's majority of all legal fees.
So just to make sure that I'm understanding, when staff utilizes Wyrick Robbins, it's going under governing board?
The majority of the time, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes things are allocated towards specific projects, for instance, like Eastern Wake EMS, building, legal work. some other things like that. They might get charged to that item.
I think that just for me, and I'm not sure if the board has anything to add, but I would like for us in the upcoming budget cycle to move towards allocating those legal fees to the specific department that is actually using them.
Any other questions, comments concerning the monthly financial?
Thank you.
The next was Ordinance 2022-33, Governor's Crime Prevention Grant.
I feel like we have already discussed this grant a bit prior to this coming before us tonight. And I don't think that anyone has a problem with taking on that grant, those grant monies. I just need to understand moving forward in order to maintain that program, there's going to be associated fees. And do you have that number on a yearly basis, or at least a guesstimate as to what those fees are going to cost?
Yeah, I can give you an estimate. So the grant was for 3 years, so we'll have the next 36 months taken care of, but after that, it will be roughly maybe $5,300 a year, and I would expect that inflation will touch that as it does everything, so it's an estimate.
So the purchase of the software, we're just purchasing the legal rights to it, and it's not that we own the software and then we're just paying for the upkeep of it. We actually have to pay for that whole process every year.
It's cloud-based, and
Okay,
so
all
you're
right.
paying for the space.
Great, thank you. That was my question that I needed clarification on.
I have some question. As she stated, everybody else may have been there early and got it. Being that I'm new, maybe some stuff that they already know. I just kind of want to know, like, how was the award like evaluated? What decisions did they do to give the award to us, the grant money to us?
How is the award evaluated?
Yes, ma'am.
So the Governor's Crime Commission sets aside designated funds for smaller agencies every year to purchase equipment. And we apply along with, I don't know how many agencies apply, but I would guess well over 100. And it's a competitive system, so there's a certain pot of money that comes down from the federal government. It's JAG burn funds, if you're familiar with that at all. Larger municipalities get money designated specifically to them from the federal government. Smaller municipalities have to go through the Governor's Crime Commission. So we're competing with other small agencies for up to $24,500 a year. And you have to justify your request. They evaluate it based on their priorities. For example, this year, one of their major priorities is accreditation. So many agencies are pursuing the same grant in 2023 that we did last year, because accreditation is something that the state is looking to have more agencies be involved in. So they evaluate it against their priorities, and if it meets those priorities and they feel like you have a good project that is one that can be evaluated and show success, then they'll grant the money.
Okay. What is the name of the software that we're purchasing? What is the name of that?
What we're interested in is Power DMS.
So it has nothing to do with Lexipol?
With
nothing to do with the software Lexipol?
No.
What is our current management system? What are we currently using?
We have policies that are on a shared server that not everyone has ready access to. We do put them on CDs and issue them to the officers, but that's not an ideal way of maintaining policies. They need to be in a system that is readily accessible, where the updates are made on real time, and if they need to access policy at 2 o'clock in the morning, they have the most updated policy at hand. And this isn't being used just for the police department. It will be townwide, so the HR policies will be added into it for everybody to access, not just police.
So just to make sure I understand, it has nothing to do with Lexipol at all? No tie to that at all? Okay.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we need to adopt the ordinance? Okay, I move to adopt ordinance 2022-33.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Next was Parks and Recs. That refund policy?
No, this was the implementation.
This is the implementation, okay.
I just had a couple of questions. With just the time frame, each project, do we have a time frame for these projects already kind of like set out or things of that nature?
Yeah, we would hope to finish everything that we possibly could by the end of this fiscal year. If for any reason, like if the supply chain industry is a little bit wonky right now, and labor shortages, that our hope is that we would be able to get everything that we need done by the end of June. If we don't, then we would bring forward an opportunity to roll those funds over so the project can stay on track.
Okay.
And then you're going to come back to us with ideas for allocation of the remaining $56,400 at a later date?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. I think there was another one for me. You want me to stay up here?
It's that quarter report, I think.
Can we finish this one first? Do we need to adopt this?
Oh, that's,
just so
I'm
that we,
sorry. Yeah.
I just don't want us to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did you want to make a motion?
No.
Okay, well then I'll move to adopt ordinance 2022-34.
I'll second.
We had a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passed. 2022-34. Next was quarterly report.
For me, I just wanted to get a little bit better understanding of HB 890 and what does that mean to the town and how does it affect us?
Sorry, what was your question?
HB 890?
Is that you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. The new regulations in question are to allow municipalities to establish social districts based on a series of parameters. There's been several communities throughout North Carolina that have already started engaging this process, some that have taken those necessary steps. At your February mini retreat in Apex, Teresa Piner will be providing an overview of a proposed social district, how it would relate to the town, the boundaries, as well as some of the regulations that be applicable to our community.
Okay, so we'll be finding more information out in the future.
That is correct.
Okay. That's basically it. Thank you.
Any more questions, discussion? The next was the Refund policy? Or did we do that one? Okay.
Want to make that motion? No? Okay, all right, I'll do it. I move to accept the quarterly reports from the Planning and Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
We had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passed. So now we come to the refund policy.
Looking over this refund policy, I need to have a little bit of a better understanding. There are several things in here that seem maybe like they're less applicable here in Zebulon. And in addition, the Section 5 says that all refund requests need to be made in writing to the recreation assistant and approved by the Parks and Rec director. And in this policy, are we going to need to outline how to contact that person and any further steps that need to be taken? Or is it upon the person who's asking for the refund to figure out how to do that?
Yeah, so our the refund policy itself is just internal for us to know how refunds are applied. It's not necessarily meant to be the marketing piece. I mean, it'll be available to the community. Obviously, we'll make that available. But in the communication that actually goes out to the public on the website or in the internal documents that not the internal documents, but the public copy would obviously include who to contact and how. But I wouldn't want to put this in the policy that specifically says you contact with a name and a phone number and an email address, because then if they leave or the phone numbers change or the mailing address changes, then we have to bring the policy back before you.
But there is going to be some kind of notification or a section on a rec desk that allows folks to know that if the class that they have signed up for costs $10 or less, they're not getting any money back.
Right, so we would include, we would make sure that this refund policy is available, both posted in the community center and town hall, which it currently is, but as well as on the website, and we will figure out a way to make it more obvious on rec desk.
I just want to make sure that with these policies that we're crafting, with how we're moving forward with the Parks and Rec Master Plan, that they don't in any way make people hesitant about participating in some of these wonderful things that we're going to be creating for the community. And so, I guess, when I have had events canceled, for whatever reason, if it is a town cancellation, then in the past I've just gotten a credit for whatever it was on my rec desk account. Is that going to be how it continues to operate, with no processing fee if the town has to call a cancellation for whatever reason?
Yeah, so if the town cancels, then we would issue a 100% refund.
And will that be 100% refund plus the processing fee that they pay initially to sign up? Or that processing fee is lost because they signed up?
If we cancel the program, we will refund 100%, because it was, we canceled it for whatever reason. It's not within the control of the participant. And I mean, I wouldn't want to withhold money from someone because they wanted to participate in our program and then we canceled it.
I just wanted to make sure that, because the processing fees are referenced several times in this document, and I wanted to make sure that if an event or participation in something is, say, $10,
and then you have the $5 processing fee, but the town has to cancel for whatever reason, they're gonna get $15 into their rec desk account because they've paid the processing fee plus the cost of the.
Okay, we're talking about different processing fees. So the processing fee for us, I thought you were talking about the charge, like if you were to cancel, there's a $5 like refund processing fee.
Right.
So that's where I was confused.
Okay.
Okay.
So the one that you pay when you sign up using Rec Desk, it might be $2.13 or what, I can't remember what it
Yeah.
is. Or
That's
maybe
a
that's just minimum wage if you're a server, still $2.13, I don't know.
So that is a convenience fee for processing a credit card. So if you were to pay in cash or check, that fee is not charged. So that's a convenience fee for processing the credit card. We don't see that fee, so we can't refund that.
Okay.
But we can refund the registration fee.
Is there a way currently with Rec Desk to sign up everything through Rec Desk and then bring you a check? Or cash?
I mean, you could put yourself on a wait list, I believe, and then come in and pay.
So there's not a pay at town hall option that will waive that
Yeah,
convenience
I mean,
fee?
you can come to town hall and pay, but if we run a credit card, the system's gonna automatically charge.
No, I understand that. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Just one question, you may have answered that. The requesting the refund in writing, can you explain that to me a little bit? I mean, is there other ways, like electronically or emails or faxes or anything like that? How does that work? So,
I mean, as long as it's in writing, if it's a letter or if it's an email, I mean, that's gonna be acceptable. But, I mean, just a phone call or I left you a message, you know, on a Sunday evening at 5 o'clock that we've already sent staff out to handle something, doesn't necessarily meet the intent. But I don't think we're gonna be overly picky over if it's email or in writing, in handwritten or printed off in a letter. I mean, not many people send faxes, but we do get faxes, so.
and is there a reason for 2 Section 5s? I was just kind of curious on this thing that I didn't know.
It's a typo.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's an administrative thing.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for catching that. There.
No problem at all.
And then the doctor's note for a refund, that's just for like trips, or is it for
So what we're
broader?
Yeah. So we tried to be very conscious that there are things that our citizens experience that are out of the ordinary, right? And so if a child signed up to participate in summer camp and they got COVID, I don't want them to come to summer camp and get other kids sick, but that's gonna be that extenuating circumstance where, you know, we could issue a refund that if they call us on Monday morning first thing. So I think that's what the extenuating circumstances in a doctor's note.
So just proof of a positive COVID test and not necessarily a note from a doctor would also be acceptable?
Yeah, a note from I mean, yeah, we're gonna be reasonable.
Okay, all right.
In that setting, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments?
All right, so then once again, I'm going to move to adopt the staff report on the refund policy.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the next one was virtual meeting.
Yeah, I would just like to make a motion to instruct staff to do some research into how we can implement virtual meetings, online capabilities. I'm not really sure if that's exactly how we need
Just,
to do it.
it would be an extensive amount of work to to analyze and develop the policies as well as the technology. So I'm just really looking for a show of hands that the majority of you all are interested in this. Okay, I see a majority. Okay, we'll circle back when we have some information.
Okay, and so moving on to number 2, I would like us to start the process, and I believe that you perhaps already have, into looking into what it's going to take for development of an app for the town that is similar but not mirrored to like Wake Forest's.
Okay, so let me expand for the rest of the board to know. Commissioner Baxter brought to light a town app that the town of Wake Forest uses. I don't really need board direction on this. We, like all towns, are struggling and trying to find ways, and when I say all towns, I mean all towns, even the ones that are prolific, are struggling to find out new ways to communicate with their citizens. Given that the newspaper industry, the local newspaper is going away, the bigger newspapers are being conglomerated, social media with so many different platforms and independent voices. So all communities are struggling to find a way to connect with a wide array of demographic citizens. So that being said, while we're all struggling, we're all sharing different ideas that we've got, and none of us are too proud to steal from each other. So one of the things that I shared with Commissioner Baxter that I just saw at last week's city-county manager conference is that the town of Wake Forest puts out this app. One thing that I will always be mindful and make you all mindful of as well, it's easy to look at the towns around us and lose sight of the fact that in Wake Forest's case, there are over 50,000 people with a communications department, with a public affairs director and graphic artists and marketers. And so if there's low-hanging fruit that we can pluck and steal an idea, we're going to do that. And I want you all to know that. But I don't need board direction on that. That's just, we'll investigate that and we'll share that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Your questions, comments? Board comments? Starting with Commissioner Baxter.
All right, so people of Zebulon, spring registration for spring sports ends on Friday. So please make sure that you hit up Rec Desk or give the Parks and Rec Department a call. There are lots of really amazing opportunities for your children to get involved. I know that my girls will be playing 15-up softball. So if you have girls that want to play 15-up softball, I know that they need some more participating girls. There's a teen Valentine's activity that there is still room for. That is going to take place on the 10th. So Thursday, February 10th, and that starts at 6:30. Again, you can sign up on Rec Desk. You can give the Parks and Rec Department a call. Next, I would like to send the biggest shout out that I possibly can to all the folks at the Zebulon Police Department. If you have an opportunity to look at the February 4th YouTube that Chief Boykin created, she's got some really fabulous news to share with everyone, and I'm not going to even spoil it because I want you to hear it from her. We're doing amazing things here, and our police force is top-notch. And lastly, I would like to make sure that everyone in the town is aware that our work session for February 17th is not going to be starting at 6 p.m. It is actually going to be starting earlier at 4 p.m. Due to the cancellation of the January work session. Thank you.
Commissioner Miles?
Greetings. I would like to take the time to recognize the Reverend Jack Glasgow and his contribution to our community for the past 44 years. Reverend Glasgow is and will always be an inspiration for us to continue to always be kind and of service to our community. I would also like to express gratitude towards the Zebulon Police Department in their willingness to work with the Board of Commissioners and community on policies that protect our citizens. In light of what is currently happening in Minneapolis with the no-knock warrant shooting and killing of 22-year-old Ahmad Locke, we must continue to work together to keep all safe. This weekend also there's a football game being played at a 90s R&B concert. And regardless of whoever wins the game, I'm glad we don't have to watch Tom Brady.
Commissioner.
I want to thank all the applicants that came out tonight. Everyone did a good job, so we've got a job ahead of us to review everyone. But thank you all for loving Zebulon too.
Yeah, 4 quick items. Once again, watch the chief's video, and you get a chance, shake a hand and thank a Zebulon police officer for all they do for us. Number 2, I'll be a broken record again. Please mask up in public. We're not out of the COVID-19 yet, and I think a lot of people are getting very slack. I'm seeing fewer and fewer people wearing masks, especially in high gatherings. I want to shout out to Chris Ray and his staff. The last couple weekends of bad weather, I thought the roads in Zebulon were in fantastic shape. You guys preempted it with brine. You were pushed to snow. We had no issues. You guys did a killer job. Thank you. And also want to thank ERA Parish Realty for the $1,000 donation to kick off the youth program financial aid program. I think it's a great idea. I may even write a check myself. That's it.
Thank you. And I'd like to just kind of piggyback off what Commissioner Clark has said. We certainly appreciate all the applicants. I think all of you would make great commissioners. Unfortunately, we can only choose one, but I'm sure there's all types of opportunities to serve the community, and we're just so appreciative of your interest, and thank you for coming out and offering us your presentations. Next, managers report.
Thank you, Mayor. As Commissioner Baxter said, the February 17th work session starts at 4 for the community. Give you a brief peek of some of the topics. We'll begin our community assessment conversations. That's another way of saying pre-budget discussions. The board will receive reports from police and fire and parks and rec as the first installment. Every one of these presentations is going to get at what the strategic plan was getting at, which is recognizing Zebulon is a growing and a diversifying community. So we have the capacity, meaning a volume, and a capability, meaning the skill sets to serve our growing and diversifying community. So those are the start of those presentations that you'll hear. We will bring before you a draft of Wake County's Memorandum of Understanding to co-locate an EMS facility with a fire station. You will start the development of a water allocation policy. For those at home watching, water allocation policy is just a way to grade and incentivize the type of development you want to see and disincentivize the type of development you don't want to see. And we will continue bringing you information on the bond referendum process. We'll have information that was asked at the previous work session, which was more information and costs associated with financial advisor, bond counsel, and public engagement and education efforts. And then on February 23rd, as already been mentioned before, you will have a mini retreat at the town of Apex. You'll hear from the town of Apex in their place-making efforts, and you'll get a chance to comment on what you liked or didn't like about what they were doing. You'll also hear from Holly Springs and their staff and how they recruited. This is all the start of the development of your economic development strategic plan. And then finally, as the mayor has mentioned, February 25th is a special called meeting specifically dedicated to discussing the filling of the board vacancy. That concludes my report, but let me recognize Bobby Fitz for some budget transfers.
Thank you, Joe. These are just some operating transfers between line items, operating line item to operating line item below $5,000 as allowed by the budget ordinance. First, in Public Works property, project and property management, move $2,636 from contracted services janitorial, $1,136 to that to part-time salaries, and $1,500 to travel and training. Move $2,000 from municipal complex maintenance to municipal complex water and sewer. Move $1,000 from community center maintenance to cell phones. Move $3,040 from insurance and bonds, 40 of that to insurance and bonds stadium, and $3,000 to fuel. In Public Works operations, moved $5,000 from insurance and bonds to fuel. And finally, moved $5,000 from contracted services, yard waste management, to materials and supplies, streets. And that's all. Thank you.
That concludes our report.
If you have a question, yes, just real fast. Is it possible to get that information emailed to us?
Sure.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, next closed session per NC General Statute 143-318.11A5 to instruct the town staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by on behalf of the town in negotiating the price or other materials or terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, or exchange or lease. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I move we go in closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion passed.